What's good, YouTube? This video is going to be about how to become more attractive to single successful men, or 5 ways to attract more high value men. A lot of women ask me how to attract more single successful men, or how to become more attractive to them. How to stand out among the other women competing for their love and attention. These men, more than others, are selective and more rigid in their needs for a woman. Men with options often want the best available, just like in their careers and their possessions. Now for this video, I'm defining successful men as being in the top 10% of earners or higher. These are 4 things that those men with a lot of options for love prioritize. Number 1, being at your best. Successful men are highly motivated, so they often look for high levels of motivation in their partners. They often fear falling for a woman whose only motivation is locking down a successful man. They want to look at you and see progress and ambition, not stagnation, not complacency. To be honest, some people don't want anything for themselves outside of love. Consequently, they don't acquire much, and they can't offer much to a person outside of love. Now, if you're shaking and moving, if you have a lot of shit in place, your words are more powerful. Your approval means more. You can encourage and inspire more naturally. Inspiration and motivation is energy. If you can look at what you're doing and be encouraged and motivated and energized and feel like you have that part of your lives in common, he's more likely to look at you a little bit longer than the other candidates for his love. These men have a lot of options. Being at your best makes you stand out. As simple as it sounds, a lot of people aren't at their best. And because single successful men often shun mediocrity, a woman not at her best can appear to be mediocre. With that said, the second trait that makes you more attractive to single successful men is being genuine. Because of the fear that many of them have for being used, they often look for signs of honesty and genuineness and can despise ass kissers. Some women make them feel like a lottery ticket. They do anything to impress these guys from the very beginning. They don't trust people who don't protect themselves because they're always on guard, guarding their fortunes, guarding their futures, guarding their trajectory. A genuine woman who doesn't bend, fold, or break herself to impress him is often going to have more of a chance to love him, or more time for him to figure it out. Sometimes they really like women with harsher boundaries because they're so used to women just throwing themselves at them. Again, because they feel like a lottery ticket. They often assume when a woman's too accommodating that she has ulterior motives. And as we know, the only real way to impress anyone is to stand out. You're not going to be a standout kissing the ass of any guy who has options, successful or not, because that's what most women do. Most women will overextend themselves in the quest for a single successful man's love. In that case, sometimes they don't know if you want them or their status. So a woman who's genuine, a woman who has obvious boundaries, a woman who doesn't grant premature access to her heart to a man or her body to a man is always going to look like a more genuine person. Not because it's true necessarily, but because he's on guard for people who would give him too much in order to leverage his success. The third thing that attracts single successful men is a productive and full schedule. You got to understand, many of them fear being held back and slowed down by women who don't value their productivity. So they love a woman with a full schedule, who has shit to do, who's not always available to them. Some women don't have anything to do in their life after they go to work. A lot of people's schedules start and stop at their jobs, which is perfectly fine. But single successful men don't want you waiting around for them to stop working or making money. They want you to have enough in place that they can come when they're available. And sometimes it's even a plus if they might miss you because you're too busy to come when they're available. They fear that a woman who doesn't have a lot going on would be more focused on him and therefore more needy. When people are needy, it's draining. And because single successful men are often really hard workers and get kind of tired, they need a woman who's an energy source, not an energy drain, not an emotional drain, not a time drain. While none of those things might be true about you if you don't have a lot going on, the assumption is ultimately you become too dependent on him. And they look for independence, energetic and emotional independence. Women like that don't impede their progress. Moving on, the fourth trait that attracts single successful or high value men is, I hate to say it, but luxurious women. If they live luxurious lives and drive luxurious cars, they often want a luxurious woman. Now this isn't true of all men, but many of them do. And you're already talking about a smaller pool of men who have access to a lot of women. I'd be lying if I didn't add this to the list. Prolonged access to luxury can increase the vanity and entitlement to what one perceives as the best of the best. Not all successful men, of course, but this is common. The guys who adopt that obsession can be very hard to impress sometimes. They often attract women who are more meticulous about how they look in their attempt to secure and impress these men. They get used to it. Being in great physical shape becomes an expectation and then a requirement of these guys. Many think of their future wife as a trophy wife. And before you get disgusted at this, the vanity, I'd like to remind you that seeking out single successful men exclusively has its pros and cons, and this is one of the cons for some of you. The pros are obvious, but the cons are more competition and stricter beauty standards. This because they have more choices. It's as shallow to prioritize a bank account balance as it is a cup size or a hip to ass ratio. With that said, when two people solely focused on these things come together, it's a fair exchange. Again, some single successful men don't care as much about looks, but now you're fragmenting an already small percentage of the population. So if you're fishing for these guys exclusively, you have to look your best. And notice, I said your best, not the best. With that said, the fifth thing that high-value men find very attractive is women who are highly successful themselves. If the hope is marriage, many want a woman who also has assets to protect, or her own money, so that if things go bad, he doesn't lose his ass in the divorce. They want a woman who understands and shares the necessity of a prenuptial agreement, or at least doesn't mind one because she has enough established financially. And I know a lot of women who don't have a lot of money would sign a prenuptial agreement, but a woman with assets is quicker to sign one. They'd probably bring it up first. Many women will guilt trip a successful man into not getting a prenuptial agreement. And then when a relationship fails, he loses everything he worked for. There are plenty of stories about women who get married to these successful men only to get divorced, doing it multiple times throughout their lives. No man's dream is to be in a court case dissolving multiple assets that he acquired before his marriage or before he met you. Some men seek out successful women because they want to choose their partners every day out of want and out of love, not out of obligation or fear, not out of a need to protect their fortunes. Divorce is often not a fair process for very rich men, and sometimes to them it seems more like a heist than a divorce or a breakup. It's always a fear they have. A woman with the aforementioned qualities and more of her own money will always be more alluring to certain single successful men. Lost love is scary enough without the loss of money being on your mind. That is, unless he has a savior's complex and or likes to use his money as leverage and control over others. Or he's a narcissist who loves to leverage his financial power over his spouse to control them and enslave them. In that case, he'll want a woman to need him and his money. In that case, he'll need a woman to need him and his money. But that's another video. This video is about successful men in average mental health and no abusive tendencies. And so anyway, I hope that helps. I hope that sparks a thought and gets you thinking about how you can improve the package that you present to these types of men if you're in the market for them. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Follow me at KFIC24 on Instagram. I'll get with y'all later.